Welcome back to our channel, but don't scroll past this, because what you're about to hear is more than just a business journey. This is a human journey, a story about a young boy who grew up surrounded by struggle, who watched his father suffer, who lived in tiny, broken apartments, and moved through life feeling unseen. And yet, he went on to create one of the most admired brands in the world. Not simply a coffee company, but a brand that transformed the way millions of people begin their mornings. And no, he wasn't born wealthy. No, he didn't have powerful connections. No, he didn't even start the company he would later completely change. People mocked him, rejected him, and told him, "Nobody is going to spend $3 on a cup of coffee." He heard the word no, not once, not 10 times, but 217 times. And still, he kept going. His name is Howard Schultz, and this is the story of how he turned a painful childhood into a billion-dollar empire, how he transformed coffee into a lifestyle, and how rejection became the fire that made him unstoppable. And yes, while you listen, you're also improving your English, because we use simple, emotional, beginner-friendly storytelling that helps you learn new vocabulary, real-life lessons, and speak more naturally through stories. So, grab your coffee, or hold on to your dreams. Because this isn't just a story you'll remember. This is a story that could change your life. Part 1. The Boy Who Grew Up in Pain. Brooklyn, New York, 1953. Howard Schultz was born into a world where dreams stayed small because survival was difficult. He grew up in the Bayview housing projects, a government apartment complex in a rough Brooklyn neighborhood where families lived paycheck to paycheck. His father worked as a truck delivery driver. No fancy career, no job security, no health insurance. One winter day, his father slipped on ice and badly injured his hip. And do you know what happened afterward? Nothing. No medical support, no compensation, no protection, no help. Howard watched his father, once a strong and hard-working man, suddenly become defeated and hopeless. He watched him sit quietly on the couch, unemployed, depressed, and overwhelmed with shame. Nobody stepped in to help. Nobody cared. Howard later said, "That moment changed me forever. I understood what it felt like to be treated like a number instead of a human being. I promised myself that if I ever built a company, it would value people instead of destroying them." He was only a child, but that pain stayed deep inside him. His family was so poor that Howard often felt embarrassed inviting friends over to his home. He didn't have his own room, no comfort, no luxury, sometimes not even enough clothes. He once said, "When you grow up poor, you never truly forget it." Poverty leaves a mark on your life, but instead of breaking him, that pain created determination inside him. Howard didn't have an easy road to success, but he had one powerful advantage: persistence. He played sports, he worked small jobs, he delivered newspapers, he saved every dollar he could, and against all expectations, he became the first person in his family to attend college. But even that journey was difficult. He didn't attend Harvard. He studied at Northern Michigan University on a football scholarship and worked as a bartender and salesman just to afford school expenses. After graduation, he got a job as a salesman for Xerox, one of the best sales training companies in America at the time. And he was talented, very talented. But Howard wanted something greater. Later, he joined a small kitchenware company. His responsibility was selling coffee machines to local cafes. And that's when something surprising happened. While reviewing sales reports, he noticed that one small client in Seattle kept ordering more coffee machines than anyone else. He became curious, so he flew there to discover why. The company was called Starbucks. Back then, Starbucks had only for stores, and it didn't even sell prepared coffee drinks, only coffee beans, grinders, and equipment. But there was something special about the atmosphere, the people, the philosophy. Howard instantly fell in love with it. He said, "There was something magical about Starbucks. I saw more than coffee. I saw authenticity, warmth, and culture, and in that exact moment, a dream began growing inside him. Howard left his job and joined Starbucks, but he had no idea that this small choice would eventually lead him into the biggest struggle of his life. Howard Schultz had experienced pain. He had felt invisible. He had known poverty, hopelessness, and humiliation. But he also carried a dream to build something better than what his father experienced, to create a company that respected people. And now, he had found the perfect place for that dream, Starbucks. What he didn't realize yet was that the same people he admired would soon reject his biggest vision. They would tell him, "That's not who we are." But Howard Schultz wasn't an ordinary man. He wasn't just selling coffee. He was preparing to sell an entirely new way of living. Howard Schultz had joined Starbucks, a tiny company in Seattle. He wasn't the owner. He wasn't wealthy. He was simply an employee. But deep inside him, something much larger was growing, a vision that nobody else around him could understand. In 1983, Starbucks sent Howard to Milan, Italy, for a trade show. It was supposed to be a quick business trip, but what he discovered there completely changed his future. As he walked through the streets of Milan, something captured his heart. Espresso bars were everywhere, lively, energetic, filled with people. But people weren't only drinking coffee. They were talking, laughing, sharing stories, building relationships. The baristas knew customers by name. People didn't visit just for coffee. They came for emotion, connection, and community. Howard stood there in silence. It felt like he had stepped into another world. This is it, he thought. This is what America is missing. We don't have this culture, this feeling, this experience. He didn't just see coffee. He saw belonging. He saw comfort. He saw humanity. When Howard returned to Seattle, he walked into the Starbucks office filled with excitement and energy. He told the founders, "We need to open coffee bars, not just sell beans. Let people drink coffee here. Let's bring Italian espresso culture to America." He was inspired. He was confident. He believed he had found the future. But then came the answer that crushed him. The Starbucks founders, Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Boker, listened carefully. Then they replied, "No, that's not who we are. We sell coffee beans, not beverages." They didn't believe Americans would accept the idea. They thought nobody would ever pay $2 or $3 for coffee. They believed it was too risky and too unusual. Howard was devastated. This was his dream, his purpose, his moment. And it had just been rejected. Howard didn't yell. He didn't fight. But inside himself, he already knew the truth. If they won't build it, then I'll build it myself. So, with nothing except belief and determination, Howard made the biggest decision of his life. He would leave Starbucks and start his own coffee company. Howard was heartbroken because he loved Starbucks deeply, but his vision was larger than loyalty. So, in 1985, he resigned. He decided to create a company called Il Giorno, named after an Italian newspaper. But there was one major problem. He had no money. He needed investors to fund the business. Howard truly believed in his idea. He assumed others would believe in it too. But instead, he faced rejection after rejection after rejection. He walked into meetings full of passion and left, hearing closed doors behind him. "Americans will never spend $3 on coffee. You're not Italian. This idea will never work here. You're dreaming way too big." He was mocked, ignored, and dismissed. Howard later said, "I was rejected 217 times. That number is permanently burned into my memory." But he refused to stop. Day after day, meeting after meeting, presentation after presentation, he kept going until finally 30 investors agreed to support him. He raised $400,000 and, in 1986, opened his first coffee bar in Seattle. It wasn't simply a cafe. It was his tribute to Italy. Howard carefully designed every detail to feel different. Italian music played softly in the background. Baristas remembered customers' names. You didn't just purchase coffee, you experienced something meaningful. And guess what happened? People loved it. They didn't care that it was unfamiliar. They didn't care about the price. They came for the feeling. Il Giornale became an immediate success. Howard had proven everyone wrong. While Il Giornale was growing rapidly, something unexpected happened. The Starbucks founders, the same people who once rejected Howard's vision, decided to sell the company. They wanted to move on. Starbucks had become too small for their interests. Howard immediately recognized the opportunity, a huge opportunity, a dangerous opportunity. The dream that had once been denied to him was now available for sale. But there was a problem. In 1987, Howard learned the price. To buy Starbucks, he needed $3.8 million, nearly $10 million in today's money. And Howard didn't have anything close to that amount. He was still a small entrepreneur, still building his business. But for Howard, this wasn't just another business deal. This was personal. This was his life's dream. So once again, he entered battle mode. He spoke with every investor he could find. He begged, pitched, cried, and explained, "This isn't just a coffee company. This is my purpose in life." Finally, after weeks of exhausting effort, he succeeded in raising the money. And in August 1987, at only 34 years old, Howard Schultz purchased Starbucks for $3.8 million. And he didn't just buy a company, he reclaimed his vision. Part 2. The coffee that became a culture. It was 1987. Howard had officially purchased Starbucks. But what exactly had he bought? It wasn't a worldwide brand. It wasn't highly profitable. It wasn't even a true coffee house yet. All it had were 6 stores, a tiny roasting operation, an unclear brand identity, and a few dozen employees. The company didn't serve ready-to-drink coffee. It only sold coffee beans, machines, and accessories. There were no lattes, cappuccinos, frappuccinos, or caf music. None of the things you recognize today existed. Yet, Howard had an enormous challenge ahead of him. Howard didn't simply want to own Starbucks. He wanted to completely reinvent it. His vision was simple and powerful. Starbucks would not just sell coffee, it would create an experience, an emotion, third place between home and work. So, he immediately began building that dream. Howard followed 3 important principles. First, create genuine human connection. Customers should feel respected, appreciated, and understood. Second, design stores with emotion. Every location should feel warm, inviting, and comfortable, with soft lighting, music, and a welcoming atmosphere. Third, make every cup personal. Baristas should smile, remember names, and make customers feel like family. Howard didn't want to sell quick coffee. He wanted to build ritual, emotion, and community, exactly like what he experienced in Italy. He became obsessed with details that other companies ignored. The smell inside the store, never allowing food aromas to overpower the scent of coffee. The music, carefully selected playlists for every Starbucks location. The seating, comfortable and cozy, never crowded. The counter layout, designed so customers and baristas could connect naturally. The lighting, always warm and gentle, never harsh. Writing names on cups, making every customer feel recognized. And most importantly, the person making coffee wasn't just an employee. They were creating comfort and connection. Howard believed employees were the soul of the company. He didn't call them workers or staff members. He called them partners. Even part-time baristas received healthcare benefits, stock options, and training, not just for skills, but for personal growth. This was revolutionary in America, especially for a coffee company. Howard often said, "If we take care of our people, they will take care of our customers, and everything else will follow naturally." He trained baristas to make eye contact, Smile warmly, ask about customers' days, and remember, regular visitors. Inside Starbucks, you weren't treated like a number. You were treated like a human being with a name and a story. In 1987, after Howard took over, Starbucks had only 6 stores, almost no national recognition, and very little profit. Over the next 5 years, he expanded Starbucks to 165 stores in cities including Chicago, Vancouver, and New York. But the growth wasn't random. Every location was chosen carefully. Every store was built to create community instead of simply selling coffee. Howard refused to franchise Starbucks locations. Why? Because he wanted to protect the experience. He once said, "I want to control the quality, the emotion, the feeling that cannot be outsourced." Before Starbucks, most Americans had never heard words like espresso, latte, cappuccino, macchiato, or frappuccino. Howard introduced these words into everyday culture. He trained both employees and customers patiently and respectfully. Slowly, the culture began changing. People no longer simply ordered coffee. They started saying, "Can I get a tall vanilla latte with soy milk?" Starbucks didn't just sell beverages. It educated people, inspired them, and completely changed how they viewed their daily routines. Howard deeply understood branding. He didn't only want customers to enjoy coffee. He wanted them to feel proud carrying a Starbucks cup. So, the company invested heavily in clean, minimalist logos, premium cup materials, consistent green and white branding, and a high-end customer experience. Very quickly, carrying a Starbucks cup became a symbol. I'm successful. I have style. I value myself. This is my moment. Howard realized something important. People weren't only buying coffee, they were buying peace, belonging, and recognition. And that's exactly what Starbucks delivered. For just a few dollars, customers didn't only receive a drink, they received a comfortable chair, calming music, friendly conversations, and a short escape from the stress of life. And that experience became priceless. By the early 1990s, Starbucks had expanded into major American cities. Revenue reached millions of dollars. Customer loyalty became incredibly strong. The brand was now viewed as modern, stylish, and sophisticated. People visited Starbucks to read, write, work, fall in love, relax, and simply feel human again. By the early 1990s, Starbucks was no longer only a Seattle company. It had become a national phenomenon. The coffee shop had transformed into a cultural icon, a lifestyle brand, a business success story, and a daily ritual for millions of people. But Howard still wasn't satisfied. He wasn't dreaming about 100 stores. He was imagining 10. He wanted Starbucks everywhere. Europe, Asia, airports, city corners across the world. And to achieve that dream, he needed serious investment. In 1992, Starbucks became a public company. On the Nasdaq Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol SPUX, the stock launched at $17 per share with an estimated valuation of around $250 million. Howard Schultz, the man who had once been rejected 217 times, had now built a company that Wall Street wanted to own. The IPO became a massive success. Starbucks stock climbed rapidly during its first year. With new funding available, Howard finally had the power to expand faster than ever before. As Starbucks expanded across America, something unexpected happened. In 1994, at a Starbucks store in Santa Monica, California, a few baristas noticed that customers wanted cold blended coffee drinks. At the time, Starbucks had no cold coffee menu, but instead of waiting for permission, those baristas experimented. They blended espresso, ice, milk, chocolate, and whipped cream together, creating something entirely new. When Howard discovered it, he didn't punish them. He didn't say, "That's not company policy." Instead, he tasted the drink and smiled. "This is incredible," he said. "We're launching this nationwide." In 1995, Starbucks officially introduced the Frappuccino. It immediately became a huge success, especially among younger customers. During its first full year, Frappuccino generated more than $50 million in sales. It was never part of the original strategy, but it became one of the most successful products in Starbucks history. With Starbucks dominating America, Howard turned his attention internationally. His first target was Tokyo, Japan. Why Japan? Because Japanese culture valued ritual, precision, and beauty. There was also growing interest in Western lifestyle trends. It was the perfect balance between tradition and modern culture. In 1996, Starbucks opened its first international store in Tokyo, and the response was extraordinary. People waited in long lines. Starbucks quickly became fashionable and set the stage for worldwide expansion. After Japan came the United Kingdom, China, Singapore, South Korea, the United Arab Emirates, Germany, and many more countries. By the end of the 1990s, Starbucks operated in more than 20 countries worldwide, and the numbers continued rising. By 1997, Starbucks had 1,400 stores. By 1999, over 2,500 stores. Annual revenue surpassed $1 billion. Howard's personal net worth crossed hundreds of millions of dollars. But success also created new problems. When a company grows from one location to 2,500 stores in only a few years, maintaining quality becomes extremely difficult. Slowly, cracks began appearing. Inconsistency. Some locations still felt warm and personal, while others felt cold and robotic. Overcrowding. Stores became noisy and packed. Customers complained about long waits and stress over standardization. The same music, colors, and layout started feeling too corporate. Howard became uncomfortable. He later admitted, "I never wanted to build McDonald's. I wanted to build something meaningful." But now Wall Street was involved. Investors demanded faster growth, higher profits, and more stores. Howard found himself trapped between vision and speed, between purpose and pressure, between soul and scale. At this point, Howard Schultz was no longer just a CEO. He was managing thousands of employees, overseeing international expansion, dealing with investors, and trying to protect company culture. He was mentally and emotionally exhausted. In 2000, after nearly 2 decades of building Starbucks, Howard made a shocking announcement. He was stepping down as CEO. Howard explained, "I've taken the company as far as I can. Now, it's time for someone else to take it further." He remained chairman, but handed day-to-day leadership to Orrin Smith and later Jim Donald. The new leadership focused heavily on expansion, systems, and stock performance. And at first, everything looked successful. Stores kept opening, profits continued growing, share prices climbed higher. But another problem was growing too: disconnection. Howard later said, "I walked into certain stores and didn't recognize them anymore. They were efficient, profitable, and busy, but something important was gone. The soul of Starbucks, that warm personal connection, was disappearing." By 2007, those cracks became impossible to ignore. The global financial crisis arrived. Consumers stopped spending money freely. Critics began asking, why spend $4 on coffee during a recession? Starbucks started shutting down stores, cutting jobs, and facing harsh public criticism. Its stock price collapsed from $40 to just $8, an 80% drop. Suddenly, the company that once seemed unstoppable looked like it might collapse. Howard watched from the sidelines, feeling helpless, frustrated, and heartbroken. But his story was not finished yet. Part 3. The Comeback of a Broken Dream. It's 2008. Starbucks is struggling. The global economy is collapsing. The world is entering a financial crisis. People are losing jobs. Families are reducing spending. And suddenly, a $4 coffee no longer feels like a small daily pleasure. It feels like an unnecessary luxury. Sales begin falling. Customer visits decrease. Store traffic slows down. Starbucks, once seen as a symbol of modern lifestyle and culture, is now viewed as overpriced, overrated, and expanded too fast. and the numbers are devastating. In just 1 year, the stock crashes from $40 to below $8. The company loses more than $6 billion in market value. Store shutdowns begin. Hundreds of locations are closed. Thousands of employees lose their jobs. Inside the company, morale falls apart. The magic disappears. And behind the scenes, one man watches it all happen, heartbroken. Howard Schultz is no longer the CEO. He stepped down in 2000, but stayed on as chairman, observing everything from a distance. He visits stores and feels pain deep inside his chest. "This is not what I created," he quietly says to himself. He notices dirty floors, distracted baristas, empty tables, and customers who feel rushed and ignored. Everything he once believed in, connection, experience, warmth, emotion, is fading quickly. Then one day, the board of directors comes to him and says, "Howard, we need you back." It's January 2008. Howard Schultz, now 54 years old, returns as CEO of Starbucks. But this time, everything feels different. He is not returning to celebrate success. He is coming back to rescue a dream that is dying. And he understands the reality clearly. This will be the toughest battle of his entire life. The economy is collapsing. The media doubts him. The company is falling apart. And even worse, the culture inside Starbucks is broken. But Howard does not hide from the challenge. He steps forward with determination in his eyes and tells his team, "We are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee, and we forgot that." Howard starts making bold decisions immediately. 1. He closes 900 stores. Yes, 900 Starbucks locations across America and other countries are shut down, not because they failed to make money, but because they no longer represented the soul of the brand. 2. He lays off thousands of employees. It hurts him deeply, but he understands the truth. If we don't make painful cuts now, we may not survive at all. 3. He stops all new store openings. Expansion is paused completely. The focus shifts back to quality instead of growth. 4. He cuts his own salary. Howard lowers his annual pay to just $1 to send a message. "This is not about me. This is about saving all of us." 5. He retrains every single barista. Howard shuts down all 7,000 Starbucks stores across the United States for one entire day. It costs the company millions in lost revenue, but to him it is worth every dollar. On that day, every Starbucks partner receives espresso retraining. Howard says, "We're not only fixing skills, we are bringing back pride." Howard becomes obsessed with restoring the magic. Better espresso machines are introduced for stronger consistency and flavor. Microwaved sandwiches are removed because the smell destroyed the aroma of coffee. More attention is placed on eye contact, conversations, and personalization. Stores are redesigned to feel like true third places once again. Places where people can relax and connect. He also introduces new innovations. Free Wi-Fi in every location. Mobile ordering for faster service. The Starbucks Rewards app, which later becomes one of the most successful loyalty programs in the world. At the same time, Howard begins transforming Starbucks into a force for positive change. He increases investments in fair trade coffee, supporting small farmers in Latin America and Africa. He pushes ethical sourcing, making sure farmers are paid fairly. He focuses on sustainability, reducing waste, and encouraging recycling. He promotes diversity and inclusion by hiring more veterans, minorities, and refugees. Howard says, "Success means nothing if you are not helping others rise with you." And once again, Starbucks becomes more than a coffee company. It becomes a brand that stands for something larger than profit. By 2010, the world witnesses something remarkable. Starbucks rises again. Here are the results. Revenue climbs back to $11.7 billion. Net income grows to $946 million. The stock price recovers to more than $30, customer traffic increases, employee satisfaction improves, brand trust returns. From Wall Street to Main Street, people begin saying the same thing. Howard Schultz saved Starbucks, but more important than the numbers, something else comes back too. The smell of real coffee, the sound of soft music, the sight of baristas smiling again, the feeling of human connection inside the stores. The Starbucks experience is alive once more. Howard walks into a Starbucks store in Brooklyn, not far from the neighborhood where he grew up. He sees a young barista hand a drink to an older man, smile warmly and say, "This one's on me today, sir. You always make our day brighter." Howard smiles quietly. "That," he says, "is what this is really about." Part 4. The Final Cup. The Legacy of a Dreamer Who Never Gave Up. It's 2017. Starbucks has fully recovered. The company is stronger than ever before. It now has more than 25,000 stores around the world, a market value above $80 billion, over 300,000 employees, one of the most recognizable logos on earth, customers in more than 70 countries, and a stock price that has risen thousands of % since its IPO. The Starbucks app becomes one of the most widely used mobile payment platforms in America, even outperforming Apple Pay in certain markets. But Starbucks is now more than numbers and statistics. It has become a global habit, a daily part of people's lives. From students to CEOs, from Tokyo to Toronto, from Mumbai to Miami, people walk into Starbucks, say their order out loud, and feel heard, valued, and respected. By this point, Howard Schultz is in his early 60 seconds. He often visits stores quietly and without warning. Sometimes he sees a single mother working on her laptop while sipping a latte. Sometimes he notices a homeless man receiving a warm coffee from a smiling barista. And sometimes he simply hears laughter, music, and peaceful conversation. In those moments, he thinks, "This is exactly what I dreamed about. Not just a product, but a place, a feeling." Howard never wanted to build the biggest coffee company in the world. He wanted to build the most human one, and he succeeded. Now, let's stop for a moment and look at the scale of what Howard created. Metric. Then 1987. Now, 2017. Stores, 6. Now, over 25,000. Revenue, $5 million a year. Now, over $22 billion a year. Employees, a few dozen. Now, more than 300,000. Countries, only the United States. Now, over 70 countries. Stock price at IPO, $17 per share. Now, over $60 per share. Company value, $250 million. Now, more than $80 billion. And all of this came from a man who grew up in public housing, who watched his father struggle, and who promised himself he would never allow workers to feel invisible again. In 2017, Howard Schultz stepped down as CEO once more, but this time on his own terms. He said, "It's time for a new generation to lead, but I'm not leaving. I'm simply passing the torch." Leadership was handed to Kevin Johnson, a former technology executive and longtime Starbucks board member. Howard remained chairman, still passionate, still involved, but no longer managing daily operations. But Howard did not retire to live a quiet life. Instead, he focused his energy on social impact, human rights, veteran employment, underserved communities, and restoring the American dream. He launched programs to hire more than 10,000 military veterans, provide free college education to Starbucks employees through partnerships, create opportunities for refugees and disadvantaged youth, an advocate for racial and economic equality. Howard believed companies carry responsibilities greater than profit. We are not in business only to make money. We are in business to elevate humanity. Many people don't realize this, but Howard's desire to care for employees, create a warm workplace, and treat people with dignity came directly from personal pain. His father, Fred Schultz, worked as a delivery truck driver. One day, he slipped on ice and injured his hip. He lost his job. No compensation, no support, no respect. Howard was only 7 years old at the time. He never forgot seeing his father sitting at home, broken physically and emotionally. I saw what happens when workers become invisible. Starbucks became Howard's answer to that pain. That's why he built a company where even part-time baristas received healthcare, stock options, education, and dignity. In 2019, Howard announced that he was considering a run for president of the United States. Why? Because he believed leadership was about service, not power. He wanted to bring the same people-first philosophy he used at Starbucks into politics. Although he eventually decided not to run, his message was clear. I was a poor kid from public housing. I built something that touched the world. So why not use that experience to help heal even bigger problems? Today, Howard Schultz is retired from Starbucks, but the culture he created still lives on. In every smiling barista, in every warm cup of coffee, in every customer who sits down and feels peace, in every employee called a partner instead of a worker, in every morning routine that begins with a name written on a cup. He turned coffee into connection. He transformed a simple product into a community. And he proved to the world that it is possible to build a billion-dollar company without losing your humanity. What can you learn from Howard Schultz? 1. Your past does not decide your future. A poor boy from public housing can still build a global empire. 2. Rejection is not the end. It is the beginning. Howard was rejected 217 times before someone finally believed in him. 3. Lead with your heart, not only your mind. Profit matters, but people matter more. 4. Your business becomes your legacy. Every choice you make affects someone else's life. 5. Success means nothing if your people feel invisible. Howard built Starbucks to heal the pain he once saw in his father's eyes. Howard once said, "Dream bigger than others think is practical. Care more than others think is wise. Expect more than others think is possible. And never be afraid to be the only person who believes." He believed. And because he believed, more than 100 million people walk into Starbucks stores every single week today, not only for coffee, but for comfort, connection, and a small piece of hope. And it all began with a boy who had nothing except a dream and a reason to never quit. This is the end of the Starbucks story, but this should be the beginning of your story. Maybe you don't have money. Maybe your family never believed in you. Maybe you feel invisible right now. But remember this: if Howard Schultz could do it, then so can you. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for comfort. Don't wait for applause from the world. Start now. Build. Believe. Begin. Because your dream matters. And one final thing. This story was never only about coffee. It was about life, leadership, love, and legacy. It was shared in simple English so that anyone, anywhere in the world, could understand it and feel inspired by it. So, if you learned something today, if you felt something today, then share this story. Because somewhere out there, someone may need to hear it more than you realize. Thank you for listening. Thank you for dreaming. And thank you for believing.